Welcome to my Hendrick Hudson community presentation regarding the upcoming budget prepared by Janelle McNeil, lifelong resident of Montrose and Henna graduate class of 1988. This is our second video regarding the budget to say no to status quo, which goes into greater detail regarding the budget and our plan. Please be aware that this is the long, detailed version of our community presentation. It covers the entire background for our idea. If you would like to see the shorter, condensed version, look for the short video on our YouTube channel, Hendrick Hudson Say No to Status Quo, titled 74.8% School Tax Increase. In January 2017, the closure of Indian Point was announced. The residents have been patiently waiting for 3 long years for a plan from the administration on how they were going to tackle this $26 million loss. The administration hired a consulting firm to prepare a utilization study report, which was presented to the public in January 2020. What's their plan? The school's plan. There is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. The plan is to make the residents take on all of the Indian Point revenue loss. What does that mean to the residents? It means an approximate increase of 74.8% to your school taxes. Are you ready? If you are on board for the status quo approach, this will be the only time to have your voice heard at the budget vote. The administration will be making all decisions regarding our future. The board members are the only ones who get to decide. The public does not have a voice. This is your chance to be heard. What does 74.8% increase mean for the taxpayers? If you are currently paying $6,000, you will be paying upwards of $10,800. If you are paying $8,000, you will be paying upwards of $14,400. And if you are currently paying $11,500, you will be paying upwards of over $20,000. Please bear in mind that this is only for your school taxes. You need to take in consideration all other taxing districts you pay. They will have increases on top of your school tax. We don't want to be a community known for tax increases, job losses, reduction of programs or services, or mass exodus, or plummeting home values. That's a direct quote from our superintendent, Mr. Joe Hochreiter, at the Town of Cortland Task Force meeting on April 30th. If that's the feelings, then why is the administration talking like that but is doing very little to bring down the tax rate? If the administration doesn't want to be known for that, I thought to myself that this is unacceptable. So I spent numerous hours researching info and coming up with a plan that could potentially reduce our budget by $11.8 million. So you're probably saying, well, what makes you qualified to review the school's budget and question the administration's decisions? Let me give you a bit about my background and how I came up with this presentation. All information provided in this presentation is gathered from either the Hendrick Hudson School District website, news articles, or public sites such as the New York State site where the schools have to report all their information to. Since I had an idea, I wanted to explore the possibility of what could be done instead of doing nothing. My financial background has included working for a Fortune 500 company as an accountant and a business analyst, working for private companies as a finance manager and a controller, and then the last 7 years has been spent in state and local government as a financial analyst, finance manager, and deputy controller. I am also a member of the New York State GFOA, Government Finance Officers Association. I enlisted a small group of Hendrick Hudson community members, including a teacher in another school district, a successful business owner, and a business system analyst to help me vet my idea. Due to my past history of attending a couple of more board meetings regarding other issues. It has been my experience bringing such a complex idea to a board meeting or an individual meeting with the superintendent is not ideal. Why? Because public comments at the board meetings are limited to a 3-minute time frame. Board members have addressed the public at board meetings, at previous board meetings, stating that they are not required to even have a public comment, or that they could turn their backs on the person speaking and they don't have to listen to what the people are saying. The superintendent spoke personally to my husband and told him point blank they would never consider my idea, and it's time the people pay what other school districts around us have been paying. It has been communicated by the superintendent that whatever changes are to be made regarding the future operations, they will not be voted on by the public. The people have no say. That's why it's important to vote no. The biggest issue facing our district, I think in the history since the district has been around, it's going to only be decided by board members. Therefore, it was my belief it would be best suited for the community to prepare a proposal of an idea with only facts that can be substantiated and then let the people decide. So the study that we waited 3 years for came back to the district with 4 options. Option number 1 was status quo. 2 was the Princeton plan, keeping 3 elementary schools, and then at each school having, one school has kindergarten through 1st, the second school would have 2nd through 3rd, and the third school would have 4th through 5th. Closing 1 elementary school and moving it to BV, and then closing 1 elementary school. Option number 4 at the meeting, when the board members discussed the utilization report, number 4 wasn't discussed at all, and option number 3 of closing 1 elementary school was literally talked about for 1 minute, and then it was taken off the table. I recommend you go watch that meeting. It was back in January. It's quite enlightening. Option number 2, the Princeton plan was discussed, and it was agreed a transportation study would be done to see how much the additional cost would be to offset the $1 million in savings. And then as a side note, it's now May 5th, 5 months later, and we still haven't heard anything about that transportation study. So what options are we left with then? It's either status quo, the Princeton plan, or demand the district looks at another option. Realizing that many residents will be fiscally strained due to the closure of Indian Point, especially the generations of families that have remained here to be with their grandchildren and families, I kept thinking, could anything else be done? Is there any way for the district to be more fiscally responsible to the residents? The answer is yes. My idea stemmed from the concept of shared services and benchmarking the financial operations of surrounding school districts. My analysis led to the conclusion it would be in the best long-term interest for our district to create 1 elementary school location at Blue Mountain site, and then at the Frank G site create a new middle school so there would be a central campus in the center of Montrose. Furnace Woods and BV would be sold off to private developers to be put back on the tax rolls. So my plan would save approximately $11.83 million versus the school's plan of doing nothing or the Princeton plan of saving $1 million. My plan is a win-win for all. It reduces the tax dollars by implementing shared services. If you're a supporter of the Princeton plan and wanted to go with that one, it also accomplishes that with all grade levels being together. And if you're the Cortland Manor parents who are adamant about having a neighborhood school, elementary school, with the relocation of Blue Mountain to the elementary site out there, they would still have their neighborhood school. How did I come up with my information to calculate the savings? All the facts in this presentation can be sourced from the following places. Here are the projections, the multi-year projections prepared and presented at the Board of Ed meeting on February 12th. You can also find these on the school's website. As you can see from here, status quo planning entails losing revenue going from $36 million to $16 million, while increasing our budget expenses every year from $80 million to $92.7 million. This model is disastrous to the taxpayers, increasing the average homeowner burden by almost $6,000. You can see that the average increase on the bottom circle goes from $7,920 for the average school tax up to over $13,845, almost $14,000. In addition, there's some numbers in here that the community needs to be aware of that could impact the shortfall. So if state aid calculation and sales tax fluctuates due to economic factors in the future, plus like COVID that we're going through right now, then this will happen and we will have to borrow from our fund balance. The district this year lost almost $3 million in the pilot, which you can see where it says pilots, and we go from $26 million to $23 million. But they didn't reduce any expenditures. You can see our expenditures where it says proposed budget goes from $80 million to $82 million. They use the fund balance, which is in essence our savings from previous year's budgets, to supplement the budget so they could still increase their expenses and stay at the level where they need to be so they can keep increasing the budget within the tax cap formula. The district is also eligible for the cessation funds from a grant program due to Indian Point shutting down. However, note this is not a guaranteed. If there's any delays, the program ends in 2025, and these are not continuous funds. We get them one time. The district proposes to use this money as a bridge to subsidize the taxpayers for a couple of years, in essence just kicking the can down the road until we are paying the full difference. Why waste this grant money on another subsidy? This slide is basically just a synopsis, a little easier to read from the previous one prepared by the school district, showing that our revenues continue to decline from the $36 million down to $16 million. $24 million is the pilot loss, and then there's still $4 million that increased because they're projecting that we would get more sales tax and more state aid. But yet you can see that even though our revenues decline by 55%, our non-property tax revenue declines by 55%, our budget still increases every single year. So this is a do-nothing approach to cutting costs. It's just the same old status quo mentality. Our budget will increase over these years and pass along 74.8% to the taxpayers. Per the consultant studies report, the dramatic loss of local revenue, the uncertainty of state aid, the ever-increasing costs associated with operating school districts, and the local tax cap that realistically limits the ability of a school district to raise local revenues will make the future financing of the Hendrick Hudson schools quite daunting. Even though they got that advice from the consultants report, they took no action on that. They kept raising our expenditures while we were losing money and just passing it along to the taxpayers. So basically you need to get your household budgets ready. The median household income in the Hendrick Hudson School District is approximately $100,000. If you are lucky to get raises every year for the next 7 years at the rate of 1.5%, which who knows if that's where it's going to be after the economy has to recover from this COVID nightmare, it would also amount to an additional after-tax dollars income that you would get to bring home around $7,900. But yet somewhere, if you're the average taxpayer making $100,000, you're paying somewhere right now, $6,000, $8,000 for your school taxes. So that means that you're going to be at a net loss for 7 years to come before you can ever get ahead of this tax increase in curve. So that's how we come to what can we do? A centralized elementary school. Why does it make sense? So it's attached as a schedule I put together from data provided by the school districts to New York State regarding their enrollment. Schools are not publicly out there sharing this information. As the schools are losing students, why are they not cutting back their budgets? Less students to educate should mean less money in a budget. Or another approach is to keep it the same, but the cost of educating the same students increases. Another very scary fact is that the projected enrollment for kindergarten in this upcoming budget is going to go down to 122 students. In 2018, we had a high of 194. That is a huge difference. In the past 12 years, we've had a loss of 421 students from a high of 2715 all the way down to 2294. And in the 2020-2021 budget, they are predicting that we are actually going to go down to 2,150 students. Restructuring. So enrollment over the last 12 years has trended down. We're almost at 16% or a loss of 421 students. Studies are showing that the suburbs are changing and losing young families to urban walkable areas. There's $56 million, which we'll get to in a future slide, of improvements that need to be done for our current aging schools. We should seize this opportunity and use the grant money to help us pay for the renovations and additions to centralize and reorganize so we have efficiencies to produce decreased long-term operating expenses. In addition, there's a community fund that is out there for $15 million, which I'm sure the town, the village, the school, and Riverkeeper is fighting over who's going to get those funds and how much. But whatever we get from that, we should use that also. Centralizing the middle school and the high school campus provides logistical benefits as well as monetary benefits for after school and the arts and music programs. And the centralized elementary school provides numerous benefits for staff and the students. In January 2020, there was a front page news article in the Journal News about how Westchester County is losing students. People are not moving to the suburbs. So here we can see it says that from the story, it's saying that the kind of quiet, spacious suburban district that despite high test scores and graduation rates may no longer be the ideal for families. And we see that in our district as our enrollment has gone down 16%. In the article, it is noted that birth rates are at historical lows. In 2018, there was only 59 births per 1,000. Does this mean our incoming kindergarten class in 2023 will be even lower than the 122 we have coming in this year? Millennials don't dream about a house in the suburbs. They want to move to towns and cities with walkable city centers, and small, low maintenance yards are what is desirable today. All schools in Westchester should be looking at ways to save money due to a declining enrollment. Our district is in the top 10 districts with losing students, and that's on top of us losing Indian Point revenue. Yet our district continues on with the status quo mentality and keeps raising the budget every year. According to the article, in general, districts with fewer students than in the past, largely due to low birth rates and the changing priorities of many families, have to look for cost savings and new efficiencies. Yet, our district is raising our budget. Our 2018 demographics for the district supports the trends of declining enrollment. The percentage of residents included in the childbearing stages of life is 4% below the state average. Young families are not choosing to raise their families in our district. If you look at the statistics, almost 60% of our residents are over 40, with no children in the district or children soon to be out of the district. Here's some key information that's very important that contradicts the statements made by our superintendent. Our superintendent has commented that the tax increase will put us in line with what everyone around us has been paying for years. If HUD had the same statistics as the surrounding schools, I would agree we should all pay relatively the same. But the superintendent should practice what he preaches. Looking at the statistics for the surrounding areas, our schools are not the same. Hen Hud residents have the lowest income in the area. You can see from here that the Hen Hud school median household income is $100,000. It's the lowest in the area. Lakeland's higher at 10% at $109,000. Croton is at 26% higher at $126,000. And Yorktown is higher at 33% more. Our house value is the second lowest in the area. Croton's average house is almost $150,000 valued higher than us. In the Hen Hud district, we have the highest percentage of people living in poverty at 6.1% versus the other areas either at 4.2% or below. You can notice from these statistics, we are not the same. Why are we not the same? We are losing students at a faster rate than the surrounding school districts. We need to think long term. This is a real trend. A major question to ask yourself regarding our budgets is, if enrollment is declining, why do our budgets keep increasing? Over the 10 years, we've lost almost 400 students. That equates to almost over $12 million. If you take 500 students times the average cost to educate a student is $31,000. Why are we losing so much money but our budget keeps increasing? We are spending $3,140 more on direct cost per student and $3,844 more for special education students. $17,000 per student for direct costs versus Lakeland and Croton at an average of around $14,400. Most people would say, well, that's a good thing, right? Our kids are getting a better education. But the answer is no. It's not true. It's not a good thing. Just because our school spends more doesn't mean we have better students. Our graduation rate is lower at 92% versus Croton has 96% and Lakeland has 94%. Also, our region's percentage of diplomas is very low at 84% compared to Croton at 96% and Lakeland at 90%. We spend more on a per student basis, yet all the other schools around us outrank us. Using data from the 2018 budget and taking the total budget and dividing it by the enrollment, the cost per student for Hen Hud is $34,281. Our surrounding school districts average $29,655. I mean, you can see here Lakeland's at $30,000, Croton's at $29,000, and Yorktown is way below at $28,845. The average difference is $4,626. Why does our school cost so much more? Because we have been so fortunate to have received $24 million a year from Indian Point to subsidize our taxes. For the past 12 years, as enrollment has declined, our administrators have not had to make any tough choices in cutting back on expenses and watch every penny like other districts have to. Because of the Indian Point pilot money, our staffing and program could remain in place with many less students, and taxpayers never had to pay attention. Now we don't have that luxury anymore, and if our administration, we don't have that luxury anymore, and taxpayers are paying attention. The taxpayers shouldn't have to pick up the burden of unnecessary cost. Imagine if our administration managed its program dollars to be more in line with the other schools. See up here where it says program and we're spending $28,000 per student, but Croton's spending $20,000 and Lakeland spending $22,000. If we use those dollars instead and put it up to capital, where capital we're spending the least amount per student at $4,000 versus $5,000 and $5,000 for Lakeland and Croton. Could you imagine if we put that money into the capital dollars? If we put that money there, all that extra money, we could have had the creme de la creme of school districts. People would be begging to come into our school district. Our administrators need to be fiscally responsible to the taxpayers and start cutting the budget so the superintendent can actually mean what he says when he says it's time we start paying what other districts pay. I'm all for the budget once it's in line with what other districts are spending per student, not our inflated budget because we had Indian Point revenues. It only gets worse for 2021 budget. In this upcoming budget, if you vote yes, you will be agreeing to pay $36,465 per student. You will be saying yes to a fiscally irresponsible budget because the administration keeps increasing our expenditures even though our number of students keeps declining. Tough choices need to be made, and that's what the taxpayers look to the elected Board of Education members to ensure the administration is doing. Yet, on Monday, May 11th, they all voted yes to support this budget. If you look at the budgets compared to our surrounding schools, we have the highest increase to the budget, yet we are the residents that are impacted with a $24 million loss. Lakeland actually shaved off money. If you look on here, Lakeland actually reduced their budget by $11 million, or almost 6%, yet we're the ones that are facing a financial strain. And our school district increased our budget from last year 2.26%, or over $2 million. Our taxpayers will be paying an average of almost $5,000 more per student to educate them than the other school district. This is crazy. If you agree, say no to status quo. If you are okay with needlessly paying more for an education than our counterparts, then vote yes for your 74.8% increase. Who's going to move or who's going to stay here when our residents make less money, have a higher poverty rate, and will pay more tax dollars for a lower ranked education? It's time for the administration to wake up and get smart about restructuring our district for the future. On my theory of reducing the budget by shared services and centralizing the elementary school, I looked to the award-winning Croton-Harmon School District. They follow the model of one elementary school, one middle school, and one high school. Based on their model, their budget for 1,554 students is $49.4 million for the upcoming budget. If they can operate their district with this base budget for 3 buildings, and we have an additional 709 students with an average cost to educate a student at $31,000 per student, it should come to an estimated budget of $71 million. Our proposed budget is $82 million. That would be a savings of approximately $11 million. Of course, restructuring would take time, but the number would be relative in the future. So how do we get our schools to one centralized elementary school and moving the middle school? Information to reconfigure the classes was provided by the utilization study report that was commissioned by the district. No class size would be over the school policy. So currently there's 3 elementary schools that have 96 classrooms, 52 being grade level classrooms. The classrooms vary in size from 14 to 24 students. And they vary greatly. There's some kids that have such low class sizes and some kids that have, the max. The school policy calls for the following enrollment class size: 22 for kindergarten, 20 for first grade, 22 for second and third, and 26 for fourth and fifth. And these are below the state levels, and these would be the max of once you reorganize. Centralizing all K-5 students into one building would level out the classroom size, so then that way the school would be having the greatest efficiency. And you can also look on our YouTube site where this is located. The superintendent has a clip on there where he also agrees with this same theory, but yet they don't institute it. In addition, special teachers and special education teachers will benefit with a centralized location. Grade level classrooms would be reduced from 52 to 43, which would be a reduction of 9 grade level teachers. The consultant report shows that in the past 4 years, that each year between 12 and 15 instructional staff retired annually, so attrition could be used as a viable option instead of having to lay people off. And the average class size would go from 19 to 23, an increase of 4. Using the utilization report commissioned by the district, I took the current classroom structure and used the school policy for the number of kids allowed per classroom. I created a centralized elementary plan. This also follows the Princeton plan model where all grades are combined at one location. And according to my calculations, I come up that they will save $1.5 million. In their model, they had $1 million. Classes would also be reduced by 9 classrooms. Each year, the district has between the 12 and 15 retirements, so the teacher reduction would take over the time that would take time to restructure the school district. Using data from the utilization report, there are currently 96 rooms between the 3 elementary schools, with 73 being utilized for the current elementary schools. The total number of classrooms would be reduced to 43, which we saw on the previous slide. And I added 2 extra classrooms to the new centralized elementary school location. Using that data with the current structure of rooms at Blue Mountain, there would be enough space to house all the elementary school students. Plus, it would have us have 6 extra rooms in case there was increased enrollment. So if that were to happen, we could also get back up to the same levels where we were at our peak in 2008. We will talk about renovations to Blue Mountain in a little bit. I have heard some comments that parents are concerned about class size. My proposal doesn't increase the class size to anything larger than the set standards that are in the school policy. In addition, if you look at this slide, you can clearly see that the Yorktown schools, which is ranked number 29 in the state versus Hen Hud at number 83, has classes that are over the county and region standard size, but yet they are still an award-winning blue ribbon school. Class size doesn't equate to better statistics. There are many advantages and disadvantages to the proposal for one centralized elementary school, and they're as follows. Most of these are supported and were noted in the utilization report. That there's better balanced class sizes. Like I said, some won't have 14 anymore versus 20 something. A stronger sense of community since all the kids are together since a younger age. Groupings would improve socialization for students. Benefit of consistency instruction at grade levels. All grade level staff is together. Administrator counselors could specialize. After school and music programs could be enhanced. It minimizes the challenges of sharing staff. Arts, chorus, band, orchestra would be together. Regional makeup of schools would be balanced. Special education classes would be more coordinated. Students wouldn't have to leave their home buildings and travel to another school. Parents wouldn't have to go to multiple buildings for sibling pickups or activities, as in the Princeton plan, when they split it amongst 3 schools. I mean, can you imagine the logistical nightmare for parents when you have your younger kids and they're in 3 different elementary schools? There would be no increased transitions as in the Princeton plan. There's studies that have been done that each time a student has to transition to a new school, they show high levels of stress. There's no logistical issues. The transportation plan for the new middle school would be the same as for the high school. Most high school kids drive, walk, get dropped off to school. Bus routes could pick up middle school and high school kids at the same time. Middle school kids would that are relocated to the center of Montrose. The students that live in town within a certain radius could walk, and there's better opportunities for professional development for the staff. The disadvantages are the increased class size. However, we also noted that it's still within the school policy and it's also lower than other top-rated Westchester County schools. The disadvantage that most people don't like about the plan is that if they lose their neighborhood school model. Where does the additional savings to the budget come from besides the reduction of classrooms? So overall square footage would be reduced with 3 schools. We would lose the need for 36 extra rooms, or 51,300 square feet of space. Building maintenance costs would be reduced by 9% using an allocation that I came up with for on a square foot basis. Transportation routes would be reduced from 4 tiers to 2 tiers. District transportation maintenance costs would be reduced by 50% because we would reduce the routes. Combined duplication of services from 3 elementary schools to 1 central elementary school. District-wide costs reduced for certain budget times. We would restructure the bus driver custodian positions, and then we would also look at administration salary reduction and other salary freezes. So centralizing the space would reduce the square footage by 51,300 square feet, reducing daily maintenance costs, as well as long-term capital improvements needed for 2 buildings. We know that the current size of Blue Mountain is 145,000 square feet, and this would fit the elementary school students. So no additional square footage would need to be added. However, the middle school, which would go to the Frank G site, which is 84,000 square feet, would have to have 84,000 square feet addition put on. Applying the 9% daily maintenance, the 9% reduction because of the square footage to the total budget for your building maintenance costs would come out to almost $500,000 in savings. And that's just for daily maintenance. Bus ride times and routes. Based on the information from the utilization study, the current structure and ride times are noted, with the average bus time ride for all students being 21 minutes currently. Using the same model that was in the utilization study report, I took the BMMS route and now use that to replace it for the elementary school at the Blue Mountain location. And then using the same model for the Hendrick Hudson route to become the new middle school location in Montrose, the new bus route structure is proposed. So that's below. So up top is current, where we have what was off the utilization report for 21 minutes would be your average longest time ride. And then when you switch it to the new proposed structure, it would only increase the average ride time by 3 minutes for switching it. I heard comments that the elementary students would be on the bus way too long to get out to the Blue Mountain site. However, when you look at this model, the increased average time is only 3 minutes. In addition, there are currently 4 bus routes called tiers to get all the kids to school. By combining the middle school and high school kids at the same campus with the same start times, the bus tiers could be reduced from 4 to 2. We all pretty much know that from being in the center of town at the high school, most kids don't take the bus. They either walk, they drive, so even siblings could drive with their siblings to school. Parents drop them off, they walk. Very few take the bus, so I'm sure that the buses could be reduced to only two tiers to bring them in at the same time. When centralizing to 1 elementary school, the elimination of duplicated services in 3 buildings to 1 would incur savings of an additional $1.4 million. I believe in the Princeton plan. Because they're keeping the 3 buildings and only eliminating 9 staff positions for teachers. They come up with $1 million of savings, where we came up with $1.5 million. And for duplication of services, because if we went from 3 buildings to 1 building, you would also eliminate other staff positions and special positions. And you would also reduce your shared costs for 3 buildings and bring it down to 1. Like I said, for an additional savings about $1.4 million. Duplication of services for non-teachers. Based on the information gathered to the best of my ability from the utilization report, there are 22.5 non-teacher positions that could be reduced from duplication of services by the creation of one centralized elementary school. Again, every year the school has 15 to 12 retirements that I believe are for just the staff, just the instructional teachers. So with the other teachers, I'm sure that the same thing over the course of the years that it would take to reorganize the school, layoffs could be minimized through the attrition process. If we start planning now, it's not a, shock next year that you have to lay off teachers. Instead, you could do it planning through retirements. District-wide contractual services could be reduced to the allocation of square footage in the amount of approximately $65,000. There's $5,500,000 in this district-wide budget. I'm sure that due to shared services and elimination of buildings, it probably comes out to more than that. But we would have to, dig further and maybe ask for what is actually in these spending GL codes. Bus drivers, custodians restructure. A few years ago, there was a proposition to outsource our bus drivers. The residents overwhelmingly came out to support our bus drivers, as I did as well. I think they are very important in our district to have our own bus drivers who live and work in this community. Recognizing the community support for our bus drivers and custodians to keep them in-house, the proposed restructure would keep all of the current staff while saving approximately $718,000. So using other surrounding school districts template and then restructure our positions so they follow the same theory. So currently a majority of the employees drive a bus route in the morning, then go to their assigned school for custodial duties, and then return to a bus route in the afternoon. They would need to restructure civil service titles, separate the duties so that there's bus drivers only and then there's custodial only. This would save the district approximately $718,000. There would be no reduction of staff, however, moving positions changes 50% of the position salaries, but they would still be able to keep their benefits and their retirement. Based on the information I could gather from the utilization report, I estimated the head count at each building location. So based on a model at another school district, I restructured the positions into full-time building custodians who will no longer have to drive a bus. They would just maintain their school. And 20 positions, that would be the remainder of the 40 positions that we currently have, would be part-time bus drivers, which I believe the bus drivers, when you add up the schedule in the morning and the afternoon, it's 30 hours per week, and they would still have their benefits and their retirement. This option would save the district approximately $718,000 while keeping all the staff employed. Per the utilization report, school facilities are expensive and require constant maintenance improvement. The building condition survey that the school did shows that not all the items in the building condition survey are urgent, but on the other hand, there are items associated with each of the buildings that requires attention in the near future and other items that are nearing the end of their useful life. It is just a matter of time before some of these matters become more urgent and major sources of significant expense. We have aging buildings that need major dollars for improvements. As you can see from here from the utilization report, we need almost $56 million to take care of our buildings. And that's just, what's upcoming right now. Another student utilization study report's going to be done, and then, anything else that's happened since this last one's done, because I believe they're done every 5 years, will just be an increased cost on top of that. If BV and Furnace Woods were sold off, that would be $16 million in cost savings because we wouldn't have to update those buildings. Frank G needs $7 million. That could be used for the renovation costs when we were creating a new middle school. Blue Mountain has $12 million of improvements that could also be used towards renovations when creating a centralized elementary school there. The long-term savings for the elimination of 2 schools is not even calculated into the $11 million savings, because in capital, this would have to probably be borrowed in bonds to fix things, and we wouldn't have to use that money to fix this, but we could take the money out and use it to restructure our school and then reduce our future costs. What would the project entail to create one centralized elementary school? We would use the cost of improvements needed for BV, Furnace Woods, and Frank J to fund the renovation cost, $23 million that we don't have to use to do improvements to buildings that we don't need to keep upkeeping since we have less students. And then the grant money that we're supposed to get, which is expected to come in at $33 million. There's also a community grant of $15 million that is out there up for grabs between the town, the village, the school, and the Riverkeeper group also wants part of that money. But whatever we end up getting from that $15 million, plus the other savings that we have from not doing improvements on schools we don't need, can be used for renovations and then the maintenance of schools until they sell. Frank G is currently at 84,000 square feet and would call for an addition of a 61,000 square foot addition. So we would have 145,000 square feet at the Frank G site for a new middle school. The current middle school, Blue Mountain, out in Cortland Manor, would become the new elementary school. The Blue Mountain footprint out in Cortland Manor would not have to be enlarged to house all the elementary school kids. Blue Mountain would be for interior renovations only. No square footage would be needed to add on. The projects are feasible based on past additions and renovation projects we've done at Blue Mountain and at the high school in 2006. In 2006, we did a $50 million renovation. 30,000 square feet was added, a 3-story addition at Blue Mountain for $13.5 million, and at the high school, $34.5 million. So regarding comments made that to me that turning Blue Mountain into an elementary school or that an addition can't be put onto Frank G can't be done, we've done it before. So here's the project details back from when the project was done in 2006, and anything is possible when people put their minds to it, and if they want something to make it happen, we can make it happen. To the skeptics who say that the middle school can't be used as an elementary school, that's your opinion, but the facts are that currently there's stairs at Frank G. I think there's 3 floors. There's the basement, the main floor, and the upstairs that kids use daily. So the elementary school kids over there are able to navigate stairs. I'm sure that they would be able to navigate stairs at the new site. But my proposal also would entail using the first floor of Blue Mountain and create 2 wings. On the left side would be the first grade wing, and on the right side could be the kindergarten wing. Where the kindergarten wing is, in the back, they could put the playground, so it's right outside their wing. Bathrooms also would be, were a big concern of many who said that there's no way we could move there because classrooms don't have bathrooms, but when you do renovations, you add bathrooms to the wing. In addition, the best part about moving the middle school kids out of this location to the Montrose location is at the Montrose Central Campus, they would be able to utilize all of the fields. At Blue Mountain, they have to deal with playing in fields with flooded water and geese droppings. How much would all this cost? The estimated amount to make renovations to Blue Mountain would be approximately $6 million. The approximate cost to construct an addition and remodel Frank G would be approximately $50 million. However, the state gives aid for construction, so I'm estimating a conservative reimbursement of 30%, whereas the state gave us 40% for the field replacement, which was noted in an article for the Examiner on May 18th of 2018. So this would bring the total estimated cost down to $38.5 million. Like I said, instead of using that grant money, any grant money that we get for the cessation fund or for the community fund, or that we don't need to do improvements to old, outdated buildings, we can use all that money to fund a new school, a new addition at Frank G, and to do the renovations needed to make Blue Mountain a suitable elementary school. And once that's done and we restructure, we would be able to operate on 3 buildings, and we would be able to create a budget that is sustainable for the future residents of this community. It was communicated at some public informational meetings that the grant money couldn't be used for a capital project. That information is completely false. And here is a communication that I had with the supervisor of the New York State Empire Development, State Development, who manages the fund. And right here in her email to me, it clearly states, there are no restrictions on how school district can use the award. We do not need to use those funds as a supplement for revenue. We can use these funds any way that the community sees fit. Total salaries for the 2019 year were $40,692,000 reportable to New York State. The ERS employees are staff employees, and TRS employees are the professional staff. Those are the teachers. The administrators I broke out from both of them to show the superintendents, the directors, principals, and assistant principals. My analysis has only looked at restructuring the elementary school level. However, from the analysis, we can tell that the district is overspending compared to other districts. Therefore, the district either needs to itself go back and look at all of their data at the high school and middle school level and look at the student to teacher ratios and program offerings, and they can reduce costs themselves. Or another option here to save money would be to elect a salary reduction for the administrators and a salary freeze for the staff. The staff and the administrators cannot expect that the entire burden is going to go on to the taxpayers. Everybody needs to take part in reducing our budget. I've also heard many comments made about having 2 empty buildings, BV and Furnace Woods, about them sitting there vacant or repurposing them. But I believe that upon my research that we're in a little bit of a different situation. Because we're in Westchester, our real estate is valuable. Like I said, I did some research, and I believe that if we work with town officials and get the 2 sites to be properly zoned to make sure that they get back on the tax rolls properly, it would be beneficial to the taxpayers. There are a lot of different kinds of businesses or uses for the buildings in other communities that have reduced and got rid of their schools. Our area certainly could use a full-service medical clinic, primary care, urgent care, radiology, physical therapy, pediatrics. We could put a college satellite campus center there for higher learning. There's great demand for permanent farmer markets and kitchens, permanent farm market stores, kitchens that add value production in classes, and land for garden spaces. School enrollment is declining, but on the other hand, our demographics show the senior population is growing, and so is the demand for senior housing. So those locations could also be turned into senior housing projects. There's also a need in our area for daycare for before and after school care. Business, general office space could certainly move in there. And another option would also be for a developer to come in, knock the buildings down, and just build residential housing, which, according to sources, there's always a need around here for more housing. Some important notes I would like to mention during my analysis is that, like I said before, there's many more areas in the middle school, high school, special education, and BOCES sections that can be looked at for additional savings. If I can just look at, combining 3 elementary schools and saving $11 million, I'm sure there is other savings to be had in other areas of the budget. Inefficiencies were noted, especially that Furnace Wood building is operating for 217 students, which actually now that's gone down even more. That the district is running an entire building for only 9% of the total district enrollment is kind of crazy. It's been stated that the people out in Cortland Manor deserve that school because they pay higher taxes, but when you have 200 students in a school and an entire building running, basically the rest of the district is subsidizing that school. It doesn't work the other way. Budget dollars per school location from the general codes in the budget is favored to Furnace Wood School, that they're spending $13,000 per student, where BV is almost at $1,000 less at $12,000 and Frank G is at $12,308. Furnace Woods also has 233 square feet of space per student because the students is so low there, compared to Frank G at 206, and BV is pretty squeezed in tight at 161 square foot per child. If the district moved to a centralized elementary school in the future, it wouldn't have to ever need to discuss again redistricting or just living with such uneven class sizes and some kids squeezing into tighter spaces. We would have one space, and regardless whether or not one year the enrollment dropped 20, 30 students, it doesn't matter because they're all in the same spot, and it just makes it so much easier to deal with on a consistent basis going forward. Enrollment as of March 11th, 2020, I believe that was at that meeting. Enrollment is down to 2,218 for this school year, and it's also projected to drop down to 2,150 for 2020. So right now there's no signs of it increasing, and from my article it also states that we're at historic lows, so the upcoming students coming in doesn't seem to be that it's going to increase. So if you take all of the numbers that I went through and summarize them into a final proposed reduction, we're looking at almost $12 million that we can reduce the budget by, instead of keeping it at $82 million. And this is in line with the statistics that we shouldn't have to be paying $36,000 per student when other school districts around us are not paying that amount of money. If we eliminate 2 schools and create a centralized elementary school and follow the model like Croton, it's possible for us to reduce our operating budget by $12 million. And then in addition, some top-level administrator positions would need to be eliminated, along with additional savings to computer leases due to less buildings and staff, and bus purchases could be extended due to less routes. There's a lot of cost savings in here. Like I said, mine was basically on trying to just focus what would happen from combining 3 schools, but there's also a lot of other savings by having the middle school and the high school in the center of town. So recap to reduce the budget. Back to my original theory, if we model our school district after Croton, With 3 schools, along with other cost savings, it is possible to reduce our budget and to get our costs down per student to the $32,000 range. If we can reduce our total budget to around the $72 million, where we have right now 2250 kids, and at a cost of, I even just increased it a little bit more, $32,000 to educate a child, for a total budget of $72 million, our non-tax revenues, that includes not collecting not a penny from Indian Point. Oh no, actually it would be the $1 million that they projected. So it's $15 million in non-tax revenue. It means that the taxpayers need to come up with $57 million. And we have about 5,800 households in our in our district. So when we divide that, the estimated average for the tax would come out to about 9,810, which is right now, what did we say? We were at 7,000 something for the average taxpayer. So it's a little over maybe $3,000 increase instead of a $6,000 increase. So by taking off the $12 million, we've reduced about 50% of the tax increase. My final comments is this is just a proposal based on the theory that our community cannot support a 74.8% tax increase. The school district has lower statistics for average incomes, average house prices, and we also have the highest poverty rates. We don't support the same tax amount as other school districts. The desire of our administration to force out childless residents doesn't guarantee that families with children are going to come here and replenish our schools and pay this amount in taxes. There's been studies done since 2012 that have predicted declining enrollment that have come to fruition, and they've come even at higher rates, but yet our school district has had this data knowing that this was the trend and nothing's been done. The facts to support this proposal have been gathered from all Hendrick Hudson data and data websites. This is all the data that's in here is not my opinion. This is all fact-based. You want to check it, ask me where I got it, I will let you know. Any employees that reside in the school district, we would feel should have preferential treatment if it came to the reduction of any positions. Future board trustee positions should be created by a zoning structure as to reflect the neighborhood makeup of the district. I'd like to see it that maybe you vote for your own zone, so you have different kind of representation. Due to the fact that there's 5,800 households and only households with children and the school receive direct communications, I think that the school should look at creating a database with all residents to make sure that when they have any kind of correspondence or future information regarding budget, it should go to the entire district, not just the parents that have students in the district. Thank you for watching my presentation. I know it was a lot of information, but it's all supported by facts, and it's just an idea because, like I said, it seemed like there was no ideas out there, and it's just nice to have different varying opinions so people can make educated decisions. And we wanted to debunk the excuse that there was no way to reduce that tax increase when there is. Thank you, and hopefully you go vote and have your voice heard at the budget. Thank you.